This is
Make It Plain.
Make it plain.
MIP
With Masamela Matfumo.
Mark Thompson.
Make it plain.
Get woke.
Ladies and gentlemen, my guest today is a nationally recognized civic leader. She served for 6 years as an official in the Obama administration, acting as a senior advisor to Secretaries of State Hillary Clinton and John Kerry, and to U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations, Samantha Power. In 2018, she was the Democratic nominee for U.S. Congress in Florida's 18th district. She is now the managing partner of Arena. You can find them at arena.run. It's cool they have a URL called .run, and I didn't know that, so I'm happy about that. Lauren Baer joins us today on Make It Plain. Lauren, how are you?
I am good, Reverend Mark. Thank you so much for having me today. Really excited to be here.
Well, thank you. We're honored to have you. And well, tell us all about Arena and the important work Arena is doing.
I'd be glad to. So Arena is an organization whose mission is to convene, train, and support the next generation of candidates and campaign staff. We were born out of the election of Donald Trump in 2016 as a way to really harness that collective energy and horror, frankly, that came from that election, but to put it to productive ends so we could see good outcomes coming from it. And really, there are four key things that we do in our work right now. The first thing that we do is we train aspiring campaign staff and organizers. We do that around the country. We've trained 5,500 people since the beginning of 2019. We then have a careers team where we work to take those individuals and place them on jobs with Democratic campaigns and in progressive organizations so they can do the hard work of helping us win elections. We have a toolbox of free downloadable tools that are accessible to candidates and campaigns so we can democratize knowledge in the campaign space. And then we get out and we support incredible candidates around the country, mostly at the state legislative level, but we've supported other candidates as well. A couple you might have heard of are Lauren Underwood, Congresswoman from Illinois, Lena Hidalgo down in Texas. Arena was one of the earliest backers of these two incredible women because we like to identify rising talent and help them get their start in politics so that we can really have a fresh new generation of leaders.
Yeah, that's very important. And having the skills and knowledge and training to run campaigns is important. Lauren, I always say to people, the operative word is political science, isn't it? It can be an art, but it's really a science, isn't it? And part of the challenge has been over the past number of years is people having, the skills and the knowledge and the tools to really get out there and win campaigns, right?
You're exactly right. I mean, there's no degree that teaches you how to run a campaign, but it really is a skilled thing to do. And, the public tends to think so much about the candidate and having really charismatic candidates with a strong connection to the district who represent the diversity of the party. That's hugely important. But candidates don't win on their own. They win when they have teams around them who are well trained, who understand, as you say, the science of what it takes to actually win an election, to mobilize a community. And when that staff is also reflective of the diversity of the different communities that people are running in. And, what we think at Arena is that for too long, first of all, the Democratic Party has paid too little attention to how we staff campaigns, but also staffing has traditionally relied on these old boy networks where you end up with a lot of white cisgendered men making campaign decisions when Democrats are running and winning in more diverse districts to represent a more diverse country. And so what we want is just to build those professional teams who are going to support the candidates of tomorrow.
Yeah, and it's not only very male-centered, but heretofore, hasn't it, Lauren? I'm not trying to put anybody down, but
Yeah.
there are generational issues as well, I would think, because, there's a generation of Democrats, for example, that just freaked out about defund, just totally freaked out. But others of us found that it had its place, and that it actually inspired a younger generation of people to get involved and to be curious about voting and to vote. So, I mean, we have to deal with, I think, with, as you said, the diversity of human beings, but also the diversity of thought and understanding, the diversity of ideology, don't we?
Of course. And there's incredible diversity, within our party. And, part of what I know from being a former candidate myself is there's not a one size fits all approach. What's important is that you're running candidates who really represent the districts that they're running in. And for some districts, what's going to resonate is a message that's much more progressive and much farther to the left. For other districts, for example, those that Donald Trump won in 2016 or even in 2020, you need to run as a Democrat with a much more middle of the road centrist message. What Arena's philosophy is we're a big tent organization in the sense that we train all comers on the left, on the Democratic side, then let them make the decisions about the races that they're going to work on. But we think we need to be running incredible candidates across the board who are going to win in their communities, whether that is a local city council race or whether that's a race for U.S. Senate. We need to be a bigger, more inclusive party that recognizes the diversity of districts across the country.
More MIP after this message.
What up, y'all? It's Torre, author of I Would Die For You, Why Prince Became an Icon. And in just a few weeks, we're going to drop an epic 8-episode podcast about Prince called Who Was Prince, where we talk to his girlfriends, his musicians, his engineers, his managers, all sorts of people who were close to him to find out who he really was. Who was Prince? Find out on June 21st. In the meantime, follow Who Was Prince wherever fine podcasts are streamed.
And this really, too, is not the hour for women candidates.
It is. It is. I would say for not only women candidates, but for BIPOC candidates, for LGBTQ candidates.
Right.
If there is a positive outcome, I think that came out of 2016 and Trump's election, it was a wake-up call that minority communities in this country couldn't rely on the government to be making decisions that were necessarily in their best interests. And then that if we wanted to see policy change, if we wanted to see progressive changes in our country, if we wanted to restore our democracy, it wasn't enough just to protest. We had to put our names on the ballot ourselves. And that when we did that, the response was really incredible. Going back to some of your comments before about the establishment, I think there was a lot of concern initially when we saw this diversification of candidates and questions of could these people win because they didn't look like folks who'd won before. But the proof was in the pudding. In 2018, we elected the largest class of female candidates ever to the U.S. House of Representatives. And, I can say, for example, from my own experience running as a queer woman, that more often than not, I had people coming up to me saying how grateful they were to have someone like them running, to see themselves reflected in politics for the first time. And I think that's what we see with the diversity of candidates across the country, that we engage the electorate better when we run candidates who look more like our country, more like America.
So I think what people really want to know right now is, what are your thoughts about 2022 and how things are shaping up for 2022 in terms of the House and the Senate?
Yeah. So look, 2022 is going to be a challenging year, right? We have currently Democratic majorities in the House and the Senate, but the very narrowest, the very slimmest of majorities, I think we're 5 seats in the House, we're 50-50 in the Senate. So it's going to be, a battle to hold those positions and hopefully make gains. But what I want to flag for people is what is equally, if not more important in 2022 is all of the down ballot races that are taking place, particularly state legislative races. And, if you've been reading the news since Joe Biden was elected, and you've been reading about this new wave of Jim Crow legislation and voter suppression laws coming out of places like Georgia and Texas and Florida, further restrictions on civil rights, restrictions on a woman's right to choose, retrograde environmental policies, that even with Democrats fully in control in Washington, state level government can do some pretty egregious things and can really hold back progress. And so, what we at Arena are focusing on is not just staffing up these federal races, but really cultivating the talent to run good races at the local and state level as well. Republicans have made investments in that area for 40 years.
Right.
And it shows with the number of state legislatures they control right now. It is really time that we play catch up on our side.
Yeah. Well, and that's important because you talked about what you all did before. What I don't think a lot of people are as aware of as they should be, as well as we did 2020 at the federal level and in the special election in 2021, we could have stood to do better in those races you're talking about because of redistricting and the census. So I think what you're doing is really a genesis of, as good as 2020 and January 2021 were, now it's about getting people focused. Hey, listen, we got to do this all the time.
Exactly.
We can't just do it when Donald Trump we trying to get rid of Donald Trump. We got to do it all the time, and we got to do it down ballot. And I'm sure you would agree. I'm sure you get this too. Folks call me every day. I'm running for U.S. Senate. I'm like, hold on now. That's a whole nother thing. We need you. Why don't you start here? Because this is just as important. I know people want glamour, but that state senator, that state representative, trust and believe in this era, that's just as important, isn't it?
100%. And, people after Joe Biden won and after the inauguration, I think people took a well-deserved break, had a sigh of relief, a feeling that we'd taken our country back from the brink. But the reality is, we're still in a very tenuous position, and we have got to be doing the work now in 2021 in order to be in a good position for those 2022 elections. It's really all about building that infrastructure. Candidates come and go, and they're amazing, and they can inspire hope. But at the end of the day, if you build infrastructure, if you invest on the ground in states that matter, in training organizers and people to engage with the community, and you do it year over year, what you're doing is really laying the groundwork for more lasting state change. I mean, we saw Stacey Abrams do it in Georgia. We can replicate that in other places around the country, but it requires continued year-round work, even in the off-cycle years, even when you're tired from having just won a really hard election. But that's how you're going to get lasting change.
More MIP after this message. And as you mentioned, we can inspire more people to the polls, can't we? With people who look like the actual voters, people who are BIPOC, LGBTQIA, people of all diverse backgrounds. That's what really inspires people to vote, for people to see people who look like them.
Exactly. 100%. You want to see yourself reflected in the political process, to understand that you're represented on a very real level. And we also know that who we have in office affects the kind of policy that we have. Having more BIPOC people in office means that legislatures are going to address structural racism, that they're going to address issues like police reform. Having more LGBTQ folks in office means that they're going to address issues that undermine equality for that community. Having more mothers in office means you're going to address things like childcare costs and shortages. So it's not just getting a demographic matching. It's really saying, we want to see people elected who are going to bring to the table the issues that our communities care about and actually make change on them. And, you're exactly right. We have seen when we run those type of candidates, they inspire whole new generations and whole new cohorts of people who are disengaged from the political process to vote and to recognize the role that they have to play in their democracy. And it's really pretty inspiring.
So what about you? The bug bit you once. You thinking about running again yourself?
Look, I would love to at some point again in my career. What I always ask myself whenever I'm thinking about what I'm going to do professionally is how can I have the most impact? During the Obama administration, that was putting to use the skills I had as a foreign policy maker, serving as a foreign policy advisor there. After 2016, it was going back to my home state of Florida, where I was raised, and trying to flip a deeply red district blue in order to help Democrats take back the House. Now I see my greatest, highest purpose for this moment as really helping to build the infrastructure that Democrats need to win across the country. But I'm certainly open in the future, right opportunity at the right time, to put my name on the ballot again. Because if you're going to ask other people to do it, you got to be willing to do it yourself, to stand up for your community, stand up for your values.
But it also says a lot. I mean, you're still doing the Lord's work, because obviously what Arena is doing is building a generation, a cadre of people with election and campaign expertise. And that's been missing. We need to keep that alive. So, I mean, I think what you're doing, it's almost as if you're running a couple of dozen times, because you are using your expertise to help everybody else get elected and build that permanent. Because, I mean, it's not like people work on these campaigns, get trained by Arena, work on a campaign and forget everything they learned.
Yep.
They're able to continue that going forward and then ultimately impart that knowledge to others.
Exactly. And it's very kind of you. I mean, I consider it, paying it forward. And I saw in my own campaign the barriers to running that exist if you are different than most candidates who've ever run and won before. So if you're a woman, if you're BIPOC, if you're LGBTQ, I also saw the barriers that were there for staff. And so if I can help knock down those barriers now, help open up politics to more people, and then also help keep those people in politics year over year, cycle over cycle, so we're not losing good talent just because the pay is too low on campaigns, or you can't figure out how you're going to make an income in the 6 months between campaign cycles. Those are the problems Arena is trying to solve. And if we can try to build a more equitable and inclusive politics, then I will feel very proud of what we've accomplished.
Diverse candidates, folks, diverse staff is also important, because that affects a lot of times what the candidate says and how the candidate presents. Mm-hmm. So obviously too, Lauren, we're all dealing with this voter suppression piece, and the impact that is going to have. But would you agree that what the Republicans have been doing in terms of suppressing the vote and threatening to take away people's votes, are you finding that in fact may be having an opposite effect, that more people are realizing that if something is being taken away from them, they value it even more and may even come out more?
Look, I mean, they have certainly, if nothing else, made people plainly aware that they are trying to make it more difficult for a large portion of the population to vote, and that they're specifically targeting minority communities of color. We have seen this actually energize people on the Democratic side. We saw earlier this year the highest application rate ever we had for an Arena Academy pretty soon after this wave of voter suppression legislation started, because people wanted to find a way to get engaged and fight. But I don't want to be dismissive of the very real threat that these laws pose, and the way that they can be used to inhibit individuals' ability to exercise their right to vote, even if they want to show up at the polls. And some of these legislation even includes ways for state level governments to challenge and potentially overrule the will of the voters in states. So this is very dangerous. And I think, when you're coupling this voter suppression legislation with other legislation that is targeted at restricting what we can teach in our schools about the history and legacy of racism in the country and the implications that that's had, it's an incredibly dangerous combination. So, we have to be very vigilant on our side and fight back. Republicans are scared right now because they can't win with their ideas. So they're trying to win by bending the rules. We got to do everything we can to keep a fair and level playing field.
You're right. Folks, so first of all, if people are interested in what we're talking about, and again, I want y'all to hear what Lauren is saying and what I'm saying. Maybe you aren't cut out to run right now, but you can be trained, you can help a campaign, you can be fully involved and be of greater assistance than you thought you might be. We all have roles to play. So if there are people listening, Lauren, who want to get involved and say, this sounds kind of interesting, something I might want to do, tell them what to do, please.
Yeah, so we actually, right now, applications are open for our September Academy. It's all online, so you can be anywhere in the country. If you just go to arena.run/academy, you'll have a link there to the application. It will tell you all about the programming, and we can really train you to do all of the important roles that are needed on a campaign, everything from being an organizer to a campaign manager. So again, that's arena.run/academy. That's the application link. Of course, you can follow us on social media as well. We're on Twitter at Arena Summit. And, we love to educate and engage the community because our goal is to get more people involved in politics.
No question about it. And folks, we always talk about this is more do radio than talk radio, we like to call it. So you're looking for something to do and wondering, what can I do? You might want to take a chance at this. This sounds like a good thing. I know it's a good thing. And there's a lot of help that's necessary out there so that we can be sure that we win as many seats, not only at the federal level, but at the state and local level. And, I remind people too, Lauren, we're talking about election reform, police reform. Those are governed locally.
Yep.
Local stuff. So folks, I know we think that everything is a big national thing, but the police aren't governed nationally and we don't have uniform voting systems. So as Lauren laid out, all these states are doing these different things and you can be a part of making a difference in some of that. So please, ma'am, please, sir, we invite you to go to arena.run/academy to find out more. Follow Arena Summit on Twitter as well. We thank Lauren Baer for being our guest, the managing partner of Arena. I know we'll be hearing more from Lauren. And Lauren, make it plain, is always at your disposal, okay?
Reverend Mark, thank you so much for having me. This has been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you. Thanks for getting woke and listening to Make It Plain. Please remember to listen, like, and wherever you get your podcasts, please give the show a 5-star rating. And please do spread the word. Let's all continue to pray for each other during this pandemic and this police-demic. If all hearts and minds are clear, it has been made plain.